Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special live stream for our Adobe stock community. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe, and it's my pleasure to be streaming to you live for at least the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to be talking about Photoshop and tips and tricks for stock photo editing, and how to get your non-destructive editing game going, and just how to do things maybe a little bit differently or a little bit better than what you were doing before. And if you've mastered it and you got it all down pat, then you can just hang out and say hi. So with that said, I see a bunch of people in the chat from all over the world. If I were to start naming names, it'd be Martin in North Yorkshire, UK, and let's see here, Rob. Hey, Rob. Raymond from Germany. Zach. Hey, Zach was just on Discord. Linda, welcome. Double Q or double O, welcome. Is that a Q or an O? I can't tell. But double welcome. Dan from Queen Creek, Arizona. Deb from Arkansas. Canalinas from Portland, Oregon. Let's see, Colleen from New York City, and I could just go on and on and on, but as you can see, people from all over the world, even from my old stomping grounds in Michigan. I saw a couple of Michigan folks in there. That's where I was born and raised. All right, hey, Jeff Ross from Arizona, welcome, 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 everyone, and even Gran from all the way in Brazil, and Nicaragua. Let's see, we have someone from Nicaragua, and London and Brooklyn, and it's just fascinating to see all the people coming from all around the world. But you're not here to hear me give shout outs. You're here to watch me do Photoshop. So why don't we go ahead and get to that? I'm going to save some time at the end for the Q&A, so stay tuned in the chat. That's the chat window I'm going to be looking at. I might even follow up if there's some other questions after the stream's over in Discord. I'll peek back in from time to time to see if I'm not missing anything there as well. Also, you guys have a great Adobe stock contributor, Evangelist. Matt Hayward from Adobe is usually in the Discord channel answering questions and fielding things. And Matt is on vacation. So we're going to tease Matt. We're going to play with some of his images as well. We're going to talk about what Matt could have done better. And Matt, if you're watching the replay of this, I'm jealous because you're on vacation and I'm not. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to switch over to my desktop so you guys can see where I am. And you'll notice that I left the Discord page open. I did that on purpose, just so for those of you who haven't joined this community yet, you can see that you can get all kinds of questions answered. You can join the new daily creative challenges. You can get pro tips. You can do introductions. You can chat. You can ask questions. So if you're shy and you just don't want to do this on social media or anywhere else, this Discord channel is just for you. It's just for Adobe stock contributors and the Adobe stock community at large. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and pop over to Photoshop. I've got Photoshop open now, latest version. And like I said, I've got this library open that I just created today. And I know I've got a couple of Matt's images in here from looks like a camping around the fire pit kind of thing. And so I'm going to open up these images. And here's what I've learned about stock contributors in general. You guys usually submit really good images. That's why they get approved for Adobe stock. Now, there's some that are better than others. And there's even the premium collection, which is great. But what really goes into a good stock photo is not just the subject and filling a need on stock, people looking for an image of a campfire with a diverse young group of people. That's great. But it's also taking a few minutes to take that image up to the next level, to just do a few things to make that image just a little bit better. And when I think about that, I think about the blurry on the big screen. Is it just me? Is anybody else having anything blurry problems? It looks good to me, but let me know. Anyway, it's what separates the regular stock photos from the premium collection. Because if you look at the premium collection, those images are like, oh my God. They're not only amazing images, but they paid attention to detail. They took an extra few minutes, maybe even longer, to make the image just that much better than what came out of the camera. And that's what we're here to talk about today. All right, so with that said, what about this image? Now, and by the way, with any of these images from Matt, they're all bad. No, I'm just kidding. They're all good. There's nothing wrong with them, but could we make them better? In other words, that's what we're here to do. So when I look at this image, a couple of distracting things that are just like distracting me from it. So first and foremost, our eye tends to go to the brightest part of the photo. So when I look over on the left-hand side, I see in this photo this big, bright, sunlit area over here. And I keep looking over there to say, well, what's over? Oh, there's just nothing over. It's just bright. Also, when I zoom in on the photo on this guy here, I was like, what is that? So I don't know if that was just a piece of lint on the lens or whatever. Something got onto the photo. Because that looks like it's on the lens or the sensor. It doesn't look like it's actually on his face. So that's a distracting element that you would spend just a second to get rid of. Now, as far as toning down the image, like over in this area, we can do some tips and tricks there as well. Around the campfire, it's just stuff in the sand and dirt, and this looks like, there's something sticking out, but this is actually the arm from the chair. So technically it's supposed to be there. But then you have to start asking yourself, just because something's technically supposed to be there, does it have to be there? Yeah, we know that's the arm of the chair, but it looks weird. So we zoom in on it because it's kind of like faded out here. We know that's the cloth part that's sticking out of her leg here. It just looks like something sticking out of her leg. So if taking that off doesn't ruin the photo but improves it, then I would say it's fair game. So those are the kinds of things I tend to look for, especially when I'm critiquing Matt's work. Hey, Matt, how are you? How's vacation? Anyway, let's go on. So first and foremost, let's do a couple things. So we talked about non-destructive workflows, and that's what I'm supposed to be talking to you about. I wish I practiced what I preached more often, but I don't. So I tend to come from Lightroom into Photoshop. So Lightroom becomes my safety net. If I mess up the photo in Photoshop, I always have the original to go back to. So in this case, since I'm opening up Matt's images directly and I don't have them in Lightroom to go back to, I am going to go ahead and duplicate the layer. So I'll duplicate the layer. That's the first thing you can do to have a safety net to go back to, because you always have the original underneath your copy. So all I did was drag that background down to the new layer icon to create a copy. All right, now that we've done that, now so I can do anything I want because I have a copy to go back to, I'm just going to go into this guy's face, which I can't believe Matt left that there. Are people really buying this image? I don't know, Matt. You seem to be a good guy. I don't know what you did here, but and I'm having a lot of fun with Matt because he's not here to defend himself. All right, so let's just use our spot healing brush just to remove that little distraction. All right, now I can move on because that guy is doesn't have this big gold thing sticking off the side of his head. Next thing, like I mentioned, this chair. It's supposed to be there. It's part of the chair. But do we really need that little arm sticking out right now? Probably not. So I'm going to go ahead and just use my patch tool. Now, I'm not going to get rid of the seat part. I could, but I'm not going to, because I think that part is okay. It's just this arm thing sticking out. And using the patch, we have two modes. Up here at the top left, we have normal, which I use, and we have content aware, which I use. And so things like the arm, I would enhance to make more obvious rather than going to remove it. And that's your choice. This is all a buffet. You take from it what you want, leave what you don't want. So if you would make it enhanced or bring it out more to keep it there, by all means, knock yourself out. I'm going with the remove route. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it on normal, move it out, and kind of get rid of it because to me it was hurting more than helping. Now, why normal versus content aware? Normal is when I want to blend things in. Content aware is when I want to make almost like an exact clone. So it depends on what I'm doing as to which one I'll use. And again, all of this is subjective. All of this is personal preference. The person that said they would leave it and enhance it, that's certainly a choice. Because if it's fading away and you could enhance it to bring it out, so it should be there, knock yourself out. That would be another way to do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom out. And now let's talk about this bright area over here. It's not a ton we can do because it almost looks like it's blown out completely, but this gets into another non-destructive workflow we can do. So I can go up to my filter menu, and there's this choice right off the top called Convert for Smart Filters. And when we convert for smart filters, what that's really doing is it's taking the layer and putting it inside of what's called a smart object. So when I do that, it puts a little icon in the bottom right-hand corner of the layer, this little icon here, and you'll see it in different forms, but it typically means that that's a smart object. Now, what's a smart object? We know what layers are. Layers are like stacks of clear piece of acetate over your photo that you could do anything on without wrecking the underlying pixels. Think of a smart object as taking that layer, taking a piece of Tupperware, opening the lid, dropping the layer in, closing the lid, and writing on the outside of the Tupperware. So it's like protection for the layer. You can do stuff on the outside of it, you can warp it, change it, run filters on it, whatever, but the inside contents never get edited. That's what a smart object is in a nutshell. So now that we've turned that on for that layer, if I go and run any filter, if I go run any operation that I want, if I go to Camera Raw Filter, it will bring up this image in the Camera Raw Filter as I last made the smart object. And then I could go in, and for example, I could go into my adjustment brush. And with my adjustment brush, I could set my exposure down, and I could grab a nice big brush and just start darkening that area over there. Now again, like I said, there's not a whole lot I can do because this area is just completely blown out. So it's not, there's nothing to darken. It's just white. I might even clone in some of the trees over there. But again, the time I would spend on that would be, well, is that really going to stop someone from buying the image? If not, then I wouldn't spend the time. If I thought it would, then I would fill that area in. All right, but that is one way. Now when I click OK, that adjustment that I made comes in as a smart filter adjustment. So I can always turn it off. I could always turn it on. I could double click on Camera Raw Filter to get right back to what I did. And if I go back to the adjustment brush, that pin is still there, letting me know what I did, and I could just keep adjusting it. So that's what working with a smart object lets me do. It never destroys the pixels inside. It protects them, letting me do things on the outside of that layer that change the look of it, but don't change the actual image. Now, one of the other things I would do in a smart filter layer with that Camera Raw is I forgot to do it. I always on every image now, whether I'm in Lightroom or Camera Raw, is I click Auto Tone, because it usually helps more than it hurts. So I click Auto, and it toned the image down a little bit, whether you agree with that or not. It brought it down not even a quarter of a stop. Now I could bring it down some more. I can bring it up some more. I can disagree with anything that Auto Tone did, but usually I agree with most of it, and it saves me from having to go adjust all these individual sliders. Now, where I disagree, it brought the saturation down to -2. Double click the handle to put it back to 0. It brought the vibrance up to +15. I might go a little bit higher. Again, we tend to not do a lot of this for stock because we want the customer to have the freedom to do that. So we don't make it super vibrant, super punchy, super whatever. So I have to remember that because this is for stock, not for me personally. So I would normally go up a little bit on that for me personally, but I'm gonna put it back down and remember that this is for stock. All right, so let's click OK. And now again, we've got the image. This is our before. Look at the difference. We have this mystery thing sticking out. We have a piece of gold on his face. We have that big bright area over there. And this is the after. Just a few simple things to make that photo just a little bit better. All right. Not a good idea to remove the arm of the chair. It looks like it's broken. Okay, then if that's distracting you more, then I would go in and probably take off that piece too so we don't see it. But again, all of this is subjective. If you think the arm should be there, don't take it off. I'm just telling you what I would do. So you're free to disagree with me on your photos, and you're free not to take it off. I agree that part sticking out now does look a little weird because I'm looking at it because you pointed it out, but had you not pointed it out, I probably wouldn't have thought twice about it. All right, but you can go in. You could have even, like the other person said, enhanced the arm, taken an arm from another chair and added it over there to kind of make it look more realistic. But again, is that worth your time? That's up to you. All right, I'm going to move on. Let's agree to disagree on the arm of the chair. And I'm actually not even going to save this because this is Matt's photo. All right, let's go in one more of these. Same thing here. Like, I know that this person holding this rod with the marshmallow on it is just out of the frame, but it looks like it's sticking right out of her face. So, again, I know it's there from a person that we don't see because we see that person's shadow. So I know the person is over there. But the first thing I saw when I opened this photo is, why does she have that? Oh, that's from someone else. Again, your choice. Leave it, take it off. Don't shoot so tightly so that part of that person's arm would have shown. Totally up to you. But let's go in and do the things I would normally do. So first and foremost, I would, that goal was the spark of the flyer. Could have been, but it was a distraction on his face. Let's go in and I'm going to duplicate that layer first. And again, because I can't stop looking at this sticking out of her head, which I know it's not, and there's a shadow of the hand of the person holding it, but the shadow doesn't tell the story enough. Yep, very distracting. Okay, I got a vote for very distracting. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and use my my patch tool once again. Matt, I thought you were better than this, man. I just can't believe it. And Matt, now, remember I said normal versus content aware? When you use normal and it's touching something else, you might get these little flares, these little poofs of pixels, and that's awful. So let's undo that. Because it's touching her hair, I'm going to switch the mode of the patch tool. Am I still in the patch tool? I'm going to switch the mode of the patch tool to content aware. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just move it away. And it doesn't give me the poof. It just didn't do it all of it. Let's go ahead and just fix that one little piece. And there we are. So content aware is more exact, whereas the normal tends to try and blend in. So I might even just go ahead and remove that extra shadow because now it's not holding anything. And let's just blend that all in. Okay. Oh, there's still one more. And let's go back to normal. And I'm just doing this quickly because I only have a little bit of time, but you would zoom in and do a better job. You might even clone that a little bit to blend that in more. So you'd switch to your clone stamp tool, make your brush a little bit bigger. You can even switch the mode of your clone stamp tool to something like lighten versus normal. And now it will just use the pixels that I'm cloning from to lighten the areas that are darker. So it won't do anything else. All right, so now just not having that rod sticking out of, looking like it's sticking out of her face just makes this photo so much better for me. Last little thing I see on the upper left-hand corner, I don't know what it is, but it's not serving a purpose. This little disc or whatever this is on the ground over here, it can go. That little piece of paper, it can go. Any little things like that that are just making the person say, what's that? Is a distraction that looks like something you can do. All right. Looks like content aware gives more of a blur of the pixels again because it's trying to do something exact. That's why I usually use normal for blending things in. All right. Little things like that we can take out. All right, next we would do our same thing. Filter, convert for smart filters, and we're going to go ahead and just run camera raw. Because I like that auto tone so much, we'll try it. Didn't make a big difference at all. So that means that Matt really toned this photo as good as it's going to be from a AI standpoint. Again, I don't like that it did anything to the saturation, and I might even put the vibrance back down a little, but otherwise I'll take it. All right, so again, those few little things is just going to make that a better photo for stock than the marshmallow out of the forehead. Okay, let's go ahead and close this. Now let's get into some other kinds of distractions here. You're taking a photo like this, and nice back of a Mercedes, but the license plate is kind of, personal. So we don't want the license plate in the shot. Now, we could spend time and do it the wrong way. And the wrong way is like painstakingly trying going ahead and removing all the letters and numbers and just leaving it white and leaving the plate there. But then you got the name of the dealer there or whatever that is. And it would just be better if it didn't have the license plate at all. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and grab the quick select tool. And I'm not just going to select the license plate with it. I'm going to select this whole license plate area, this whole well of the license plate. Now that I got that area selected, so it's the shape of what should be where the license plate would go. Now I'll just make a new empty layer. Now that I got that new empty layer, I will fill that empty layer with the color of the license plate well. So I'll use my eyedropper. I'll click anywhere in the well itself to get the color. Now that I got the color as my foreground color, I will just simply Alt-Delete and fill it with that color. Okay, not natural at all. Looks too flat. Because what made it look like a well was you saw the shadow around the edge of it, even if the plate wasn't there. So we need to create that same effect. I can deselect, and then we're just going to go into our effect panel from the bottom of the layers panel, and we're going to do an inner shadow. Not a drop shadow, but an inner shadow. And it just magically gives us what we want. You can tweak it. You can make it less opaque, more opaque. You can even physically pick it up and move it around, get it where you want it to be. More shadow on the bottom, more shadow on the top, whatever you want. Once you get it the way you want, with whatever settings you want, you can drop the size, increase the size, and then you click OK. And just keep in mind, non-destructively, that's on its own layer. So I can save this out now, and if you needed to remove the logo, you could. If you're submitting for editorial, you could leave the logo there. It just depends on what you're doing. All right. Yeah, I forgot to show the before and after on that last one, but here's my before and after on this one. So that's the before, and that's the after. I did show it on the first one, forgot the second one, showed it on the third one. All right. One of the things I did promise, and we're almost out of time, was removing a background or simply putting the subject on a different background. Now, this is an image I got from stock. It's perfect the way it is. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. But if I wanted to put those ladies on a different background, then how would I do it? First, let's open up the background. Let's say I want to put them in this office area. Then I can go ahead and move this image, just drag it from my library or open it up or place it however you want to get that image over there, and put them where I want them to be on that. And in the past, we would have done two things. We would have done a select subject, and then we would have done a selected mask, and then we would have spent some time in selected mask. But since June's update, select subject now knows what hair is. It would always select the subject, but it had no clue as to what hair was. So now if I were to go in and do select subject, it will look at the foreground, look at what the subject is, but it pays attention to the hair. So I get a much better mask right off the bat. I can still go into selected mask, and I can still go in and just show you what that mask would look like. And you can see, if we zoom in on it, you can, oh, sorry, I painted instead of zooming. There we go. We zoom in on it, you can see that it also paid attention to the hair automatically. I didn't do anything extra. I just said selected mask. Now we're going to output that as a new layer. So again, non-destructive on its own layer, and there they are. Now we don't have time to get into the lighting aspects of it, because typically if you're putting someone on a different background, the lighting's different, the tone's different, maybe even the direction of the light's different. We could spend 15, 20 minutes on that we don't have. But just cutting the subject out from the background has gotten so much easier in the last 30 days than it has been in the last 30 years. So portrait, select subject. All right, last but not least, and the before and after is, that was the before and after, and you also get to keep the extra layer. So that is the before, that is the after. All right, I'm still going to save a few minutes for questions, but let's go in. Let's take an image like this where you were out and you shot this cathedral, but the problem was there's scaffolding. They were working on it. And while that is historically correct, they were working on it. That doesn't mean it needs to be in your stock photo, and maybe your stock photo might sell better if it wasn't there. So let's go ahead and grab our marquee selection tool. Simple technique is just simply using part of the image as part of the image. So if I grab my rectangular marquee tool and make a selection around just the scaffolding and even part of that column, that's fine. When you're in the selection tool, you can always pick up the selection tool and move it. Or the selection, not the actual pixels. I'm moving the selection. Now that I know the shape of it, I can move it over here to where there is one that is okay. I think I had about that much. Nope. I need about that much of the pole. There we go. And now that I've got the area selected that I want, I'm just going to simply Command J on the Mac, PC, Control J, or new layer via copy. Just make a copy of that layer. Now that layer is all by itself on its own layer, I can go ahead and grab my move tool and move it over. Move it over. Problem is the column's wrong. No problem. Free transform, Command T or edit free transform. Right click and flip horizontal. And look at that. I didn't have to do much work. I nailed the placement of it right there. So now, oh, no, I didn't. I lied. Let's move it over a little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. All right. I almost got it right the first time. But there we go. So now we've got an image that looks great because we don't have the temporary scaffolding is only there to make a repair, won't be there, when you're gone, like 2 weeks from now, when you're not in that location anymore, maybe that scaffolding would be gone and you missed the opportunity to get the photo without it. No, you didn't, because you got Photoshop. You were able to fix it. All right, we got a few minutes left over for Q&A. I promised I would give you time for that, and I would go ahead and do that. I thought Adobe wouldn't accept altered photos. Are you kidding me? I alter photos all the time. Adobe won't accept altered photos that look altered. But yeah, people have been altering photos since the beginning of stock. Again, it depends on what the alteration is. Let's remember that too. So if I'm doing something that would make it ethically incorrect, then that wouldn't get accepted. But if I'm enhancing a photo, that this is what this would look like a week from now, once that scaffolding is gone, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right, glad you enjoyed it, Zach. Glad you enjoyed it, Clifton. You're welcome, Jane. No problem, Alina. All right. Is there a recommended crop size? Not really, but since you asked, you do bring up a point. Let's see if I got one here. All right, so let's say oh, because this is a raw photo. Okay, no problem. I was like, what is it telling me? So you end up with a photo like this where I wasn't planning properly. This is my own photo. I wasn't planning properly for the background for what they were on. So now, the cropping this out is not an option. I could spend some time working on this to get rid of this. But really what I need is this whole subject on the gray. So from a cropping standpoint, and maybe I got a better photo to show you. But you know what? That's because this one's just going to take too much time. I've done this photo, but it's going to take too much time than what we have for now. Let's use this one instead. So this is a little bit less work. We have a part of the background showing here, so no problem. We just patch that out. All right, done. We got a little bit of lint or something here on the table. No problem, done. Now let's talk about cropping. When I go to crop, and I'm on the wrong tool. Let's go to crop. Sorry, deselect. Okay, we go to crop. There's a feature called content aware crop that a lot of people don't realize is there. It's not in Lightroom, it's only in Photoshop. When I go to content aware crop and I choose an aspect ratio, so again, there isn't one that I necessarily recommend. Everyone's looking for something different. But if you do want to work in one, let's say we pick 4x5, 8x10. And that's going to crop into the photo a little bit too tight for me. And also I want to add some copy space. So content aware crop allows me not only to crop into a photo, but out from a photo. So if I were to do this and maybe put the photo up there, and maybe not so much yet. So that will give me a perfect 4x5, 8x10, but I'm actually adding to the photo. It will actually add to the photo. It will use content aware fill to fill in. So I can actually get more photo. Now, let's say I really want to go crazy with the copy space. So I click the crop again, but this time I don't lock the aspect ratio. I just go to ratio and clear it. It's not locked. And I want to add a little bit more space to the right of the photo for more copy space. Since this is next to an object when I was right here, you would only drag it a little bit at a time. So once I'm now far enough away, I can drag a little bit more than I would normally. Click OK. And content aware fill will just keep filling it in. So now I can go again, crop again. I can go a little bit further now because I got a little bit more distance from the actual communicator. In case you were wondering what that was if you're not a Star Trek fan. And I just keep going. So you can really get some cool crops, aspect ratio or not, using content aware fill, which is great for stock because if I needed this to be a stock photo, which I couldn't in this case because this is prior to or trademarked. But if I needed to, I can now add this extra space to my photo that I didn't necessarily shoot with the intention of it in the actual shot. So content aware just really gives you the ability to have that kind of extra flexibility on your cropping, whether you're going to use an aspect ratio or not. All right. Oh, and by the way, let's try it. I think if I do now switch to a 4x5, 8x10, and I hit the letter X to make it wide, then I can even go a little bit more. And see what happens there. Ooh, I get a perfect 4x5, 8x10 aspect ratio wide. All right. The end user has the capability to add space. Would the end user have the capability to add space? If they know Photoshop, they can download your photo and do whatever they want. Great. Yep. Use it all the time. Cool. Simple and impressive says second address. Awesome. You're welcome, John Westendorf. Does this change the resolution? Yes, it does, because you're actually adding pixels. So you're making the image bigger. Content aware is my new favorite phrase. When will the focus stacking improve at the edges? Stuff's improving all the time. You want an exact date? Okay, it'll be September 16th. That's when it'll improve. And of course, I'm totally joking because I can't give you an exact date. So they're working on stuff all the time. All right. I think we're out of time. I know we're past the time that we're supposed to stop. I'll give you one more while we're here and while I'm waiting for any last questions. When you take an image like this is what you're going to get out of the camera, and this is what we all get out of the camera, but there's no reason you have to leave it this way. What I mean by this is beautiful shot. It's just the buildings look like they're leaning in because that's what the lens did to it. You can do that same technique where I convert for smart filters first, go into the camera raw filter, go into geometry, and simply do an auto upright and let it fix it for you. Now, if I was looking at these two images side by side, I'm going to buy the one that's straight up and down. I'm not going to buy the one where the buildings are leaning over, especially when I can see the difference. What is the best aspect ratio? There isn't one, like I said, because everybody uses photos for different reasons. I may want a super wide aspect ratio to put it on a video. I may want a 4:5, 8:10, 5:7 aspect ratio to make a print. There is no best. It depends. Every customer is different. So I buy stock photos all the time. And the last thing I care about, I shouldn't say last thing I care about, the last thing I'm interested in when I'm looking for a photo is the aspect ratio. Because typically I'm looking for the best photo, tall or wide, but not necessarily the aspect ratio. But it depends on the customer. Good question, Jeff. So, Jeff, that is a delicate balance. So, when you indicate it, people, you wouldn't move the saturation and brightness too far because some people are looking to further edit or make it fit their what they're doing with it. Versus some people just want it perfect out of the stock and they're going to just use it as is. I think there's both. So I tend to lean towards in the middle as opposed to super vibrant or super dull because I'm giving the person that does want to just crank it up a little bit that extra room to do so, but I'm also giving it to the person that wants it finished out of the box to not be over the top. So I just don't want it to be over the top because that may ruin it for some people. But not so dull or so unadjusted that it wouldn't be like, for example, this photo, vibrant enough. I could make the sky bluer. I could make it more vibrant, but this photo, which I bought, this is not, I took this photo, I took a photo like this, but this one isn't mine. This one is fine the way it is, and I bought it just the way it is. I wouldn't feel the need to enhance it further. So just as there's a delicate balance between too much or too little. When you change the geometry, does the sharpness decrease? Not usually. You may crop some because it has to crop a little for the geometry adjustment, but typically the sharpness is the same. Are composites okay for stock? It depends on the composite. I've seen people submit composites all the time. If it looks real enough, sure. You got to remember too, even if it gets approved by the moderators, it doesn't mean someone's going to buy it. It might be a technically correct photo, meaning it's sharp enough, it's got the right resolution, it's not proprietary, so forth and so on. But then the moderator lets it pass. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean it looks right. So if I were to submit that composite I did, and the lighting is on the females is one side, but the room is on another side, and it just looks wrong, then that means people might not buy it because it just doesn't look right. So composites can be submitted, can work, and they could get approved even though they're not great. So meaning they're not like you could tell it's a composite. So that's what you want to try and avoid. How to fix noise or pixelization? Well, that's two different problems. One you're not going to really fix, and one you can fix. Okay, so if it's noise, you have a certain level of noise correction you can do. So I would go back to the camera raw filter, which I was already in, double click. And if this were a noisy photo, you have the ability to go in and choose detail. And you have noise reduction. And noise reduction is a fine balance between reducing the noise, but also reducing the sharpness. So it's kind of that question you're playing. I want less noise, but I also want it to stay sharp. So I would say that it's more important for your photo to look sharp than it is to have a whole lot less noise. Because the only people that really are offended by noise are photographers. The average person looking at your photo, if it's a great photo, unless it's really super noisy, they're not really paying attention to the noise or what they would call grain. So that's more of a photographer critique than it is a customer critique. I haven't seen a photo on stock that had so much noise that I wouldn't buy it, but I've seen some noisy photos that were just fine. And again, that's also one of the reasons why a photo may not even get approved is because it's just too much noise. And if you try and reduce a photo that's too much noise, it's just going to make it blurrier and not sharp enough. Okay, these are a lot of just stock and general questions, which I'll leave to the stock moderators to answer those. Notice on the edge of the buildings, there's still some distortion. Not sure if everyone noticed it. Yeah, I'm not seeing a ton of distortion, so I'm going to say the average customer won't notice it. What does it mean when the photos are rejected for technical issues? That's usually what all the things we were just talking about. Too much noise, not sharp enough, not in focus enough, distortions, halos. So like we were talking about vibrance and all that stuff. A lot of people push those sliders too far where the photo looks really super vibrant, but it also creates like a thin white halo around all the subjects. That will get you rejected for technical reasons because no one wants to see that halo. So always, less is more. So if you're pushing the slider so far that it's starting to create problems, then it's time to back off that slider. More clarity or less? More clarity, because clarity and texture are just going to add that much more sharpness, again, to a point. If I push any one of those sliders too far, it's going to create artifacts. So too much dehaze, too much texture, too much clarity will all create problems rather than solve them. So a little bit of any of those is fine. Too much will make the photo actually worse. All right, folks, we can continue all of this in the Discord channel. I have answered as many questions as I can about Photoshop. Now we're just getting into just stock questions in general. And I think Discord is the best place for that. So people that are stock contributors can follow those discussions after the stream is over. So with that said, thanks everyone for joining me. Thanks for being here. I look forward to seeing your stock submissions. I look forward to Matt coming back and fixing this photo. Now, Matt, I'm just giving you a hard time, man. Your photos are great. So I look forward to Matt coming back and joining you guys back in the Discord. Matt's my inspiration. So I tease him because I can, because he's not here. But Matt Hayward is actually the guy that keeps me motivated about submitting the stock. So all of this is just in fun. And Matt knows this because he's not here. I can do that. All right. So with that said, thanks everyone. And yes, a recording will be available. It's available now. All you have to do is just follow this link. Once I disconnect, you can watch it immediately or within like 2 minutes. All right. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.